We're going to be starting shortly. Make sure you can hear me. Oh, you need to turn it on. Just keep pressing the white button. All right. To turn your headphones. Oh, okay. Good. Okay, you can hear me? Perfect. Okay. No worries. I think you can hear me without this. You can hear me without it? Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Esteemed delegates, partners, guests, both online and from around the world joining us here today. Welcome. My name is Khouloud Aoudeh. I'm the Global Director of Digital and Data at CGIAR. And I'm excited, really, and honored to be here with you today in COP29, and especially for this session, where we're going to explore, really, the intersection of AI, energy, and climate. As AI technologies advance, they bring remarkable potential for change. But their escalating energy consumption strain global resources and contribute to climate challenges. Today, the energy required to power large AI systems is straining our global resources and compounding the very climate issue we aim to solve. However, this challenge is also an opportunity. AI, if harnessed sustainably, could be a powerful catalyst in the fight against climate change and in promoting climate resilience through sustainable practices. In today's session, with experts from the UN, international organizations, research organizations, and the tech sector, we'll examine AI's dual role in the energy-climate nexus, highlighting the environmental impact, but also showcasing the potential to drive renewable energy innovations, optimize production, and promote climate resilience through sustainable practices. To kick us off, please allow me to welcome Mehdi Sneen, Senior Advisor on AI at the UN, to set the stage for us and with his opening remark. Mehdi, over to you.
Thank you so much, dear Khouloud. And thank you all for joining us in this panel and starting the discussion and seeing your feedback, your opinion about how the AI, the energy, the climate change, and many others SDGs may interact together. And before starting directly on the AI, I'd like to position the UN position and situation currently regarding these different digital developments, mainly, but the AI specifically. The UN recently, all member states adopted during the Summit of the Future, the Global Digital Compact, which is a compact and the first framework in its kind, post-WSIS, that address a global digital cooperation across the globe and ensure that there is a common understanding of needs, requirements, to reduce the gap between global south, global north, developed and underdeveloped countries in terms of digital deployment, usage, and benefits. It's built upon a common understanding from global member states that it's not only about sharing data and sharing digital tools, but also about sharing the outputs of the usage and of the digital tools, but also of the digital transformation being used in the member states. So it covers the entire value chain of the digital transformation, from the early governance and policy making to the outcomes of the digital transformation, either in scientific discovery or in accelerating the SDGs or whatever else. And within the Global Digital Compact, there was a specific emphasis on AI. As most of you may know, the Secretary General appointed a high-level advisory body last year on AI, which comes with a final recommendation in September 2024 that was unveiled during the Summit of the Future, with very critical actions to be undertaken. Some of these actions are included already in the Global Digital Compact. I'll cite 3 of them, which are the scientific panel composed from scientific experts from across the globe to decide about the nature of risks and opportunities and the way to govern the AI in a global mode that will be equitable, fair to different member states. Then there is the international dialogue, which is to establish a dialogue and a forum for convening all member states, ensuring that everyone got his voice heard inside of the discussion and that all countries are around the table. As you may know, there is a lot of international dialogue happening on the AI, on the G7, G20, OECD, Hiroshima process. But these processes are not fully inclusive and many countries are not around the table. And that was one of the most important recommendations of the IH Lab, to leave no one really behind. And finally, the capacity building with a specific target to the SDG, how to build the capacity on AI in order to help member states advance on the development of the sustainable development goals. And among the recommendations that is beyond the digital governance, what we are looking for is to establish a real global cooperation among the different member states, where we collaborate to ensure that there is a very fair and equitable usage of the digital assets, either by the AI or for the AI. And when I say by the AI, I mean, for example, all the public data that are today available on the internet being used and scrapped to produce the biggest large language models without being having any informed consent, for example, from countries. When it comes to the cultural preservation, when it comes to local knowledge, when it comes to the heritage, cultural heritage, there is a clear need to establish rules about fairness and equity in terms of inclusion of these assets, local assets, into global models, which is not happening today. And that's a point that needs to be clearly stated into negotiation and into the discussion when it comes about the digital governance and global cooperation on AI. And finally, one of the indications of the development of the AI was how can we bring the AI into the green economy, sustainable development, and what does it mean to accelerate the sustainable economy without harming it by using a new technology. We all know that whenever we have a new technology on the ground, like the electric cars, at the beginning there is a lot of big hopes on transformative power of this technology. And as soon as these technology are widely used, we can see a deviation of the usage of this technology. And then in the AI, we need to ensure that there is no deviation, there is a proper and a sustainable usage of the AI in order to ensure that we are not again getting into a pitfall of using a technology and then resolving another issue or another problem generating by that technology that we use it to solve one problem. So in the SDGs, there is a lot of connections and there is a lot of hope on the AI. The AI is not a silver bullet. It's not a miracle solution. It's a tool. If it's in good hands and in well-mannered usage, we may deliver good solutions. That will not be enough to resolve all the issues that we have when it comes to the SDG, but may accelerate on some of the targets. And we still have a lot of work to identify these targets that we can resolve by using the AI. Not all of the targets, not all of the goals could be resolved. So we need to be very clear about that and to be very target-oriented, outcome-oriented in the deployment of the AI and SDGs. For example, for the clean energy, we can see many goals when it comes to the uses of AI, and many examples of already used AI in the acceleration of the SDG 7 for affordable and clean energy, either from prediction of demands, which we can see it clearly in the smart grids or the grid stability. There is also the predictive maintenance on the grids. There is the building for the energy management, how to have a new architecture to reduce the energy consumptions when it comes to the architectural choices, or the wind energy forecasting, which is essential for the continuity of the power supply when it comes to the decision-making process of building this kind of energy. The same thing on the climate action. We can see that the AI in SDG 13 is already being used in many real examples, but also in many of the UN agencies or international organizations or private companies, from climate modeling and prediction, weather modeling and prediction, which is our colleagues at the International Organization of Meteorology are using, and pioneer in the AI and data centers for that. Disaster preparedness and response. Around the COP, there is a lot of discussion today about using AI for that. The risk management and the disaster preparedness, either flood disaster, earthquakes, disasters, many of these are being discussed. And finally, the carbon footprint reduction in industry. The essence of the SDGs, as we have seen for them till recently, are different SDGs and different targets. But the real nature of SDGs is coming from a system of systems, which is a much more complex than a single target, as we are dealing with most of the time today. The system of system nature is giving a very strong interconnection between the different elements that compose these targets of the goals. So if we talk about the climate change, and we talk about the energy consumption, and then about food security and health, it's very obvious that there is a clear interconnection between all of these targets together, or these goals together. And then we can bring water management onto top of that. And then we can bring many other targets. The idea today, why using AI? Simply because we could reduce the complexity of seeing these interconnection between the different goals and targets. That could be the first usage, and maybe one of the most important usage of the AI, because it could unveil hidden patterns that by acting on one of the targets, we can reach, or we can reduce, or improve the impact on different other, as a secondary effect on different other targets. So that maximizes the impact and the outcome of a single action, but we need to localize these single actions, and we need to understand what should be done there. And that could be done by using this very large amount of data that we have inside of the SDG systems. All of our international organizations, private companies, CSOs got a lot of data regarding their fields of action. And the idea is how to connect all these data and how to manage this interconnectivity. And AI is bringing one of the best solutions, because AI do not require only structured data to feed in for the models, but can deal with unstructured data, or data that are not fully interoperable, not under the same formats. It can be video, it can be audio, it can be text, it can be numbers. And that could help us building and leveraging very strong models for SDGs, which we do not have yet today. So this is how we see the AI, from beginning with understanding where we can act, then how we can act by bringing all the data, to how to monitor, see the impact that we are delivering on the ground on our actions. And then there is this very special note for me on AI for complexity reduction. We, in the computer science, we often talk about complexity when we talk about software assets. We talk about complexity level when we talk about data, but we rarely see the notion of complexity, which is a very mathematical notion and very based on strong theories, when we talk about systems that are very similar to the AI systems or to the software systems that we have. So we do not measure the complexity in the analog words. We measure it, but not the same way than in software. Now that we are moving from transforming the analog words into a digital word with all the data we have, and trying to build a model that simulates that, I think is very essential to put the complexity in the center of the discussion. Firstly, the complexity is already an energy consumption driver, but also the complexity will indicate where we have to reduce and to maximize the human understanding in order to come over with innovative solution. The human being often avoid the high level of complexity because of because it's very hard, and tend to resolve problems with less level of complexity. And the AI will overcome, hopefully, this level of fear from the complexity inside of the modeling, inside of the simulation, inside of the prediction, by maximizing the understanding, by unveiling and by making it less complex, all these interconnected systems and interconnected targets. And I think, personally, and this is not a UN opinion, that this is one of the best subjects for the moment where we could deploy the AI for the SDG in order to redesign the SDG network with the lenses of the AI, to reduce this complexity of connectivity, but also to unveil hidden connections. So the Global Digital Compact, we get back to the Summit of the Future, give the UN the mandate to establish this forum of dialogue for the digital cooperation, and among others there is the AI, and a clear point in the AI that we need today an action on the Nexus for SDGs. We are not tackling all the SDGs together, and the most important today is the energy, giving the impact of the AI on energy and the energy being used by the AI. And then we have end up with an early draft roadmap at the UN for building this global collaboration when it comes to this Nexus. And it started with building the needs for a global framework for AI development in energy and climate. That should be done with all in the multi-stakeholder formats, private companies, international organizations, CSOs, member states coming together, discussing how to build a global framework in terms of what are the next steps, how to collaborate, what are the governance rules, and what is the expected outcome from this discussion. All our discussions should be impact-oriented. Secondly, there is to foster the international data sharing and integration. We already discussed that with our partners in different international organizations, how to build a UN data lake for the SDGs, but for example, starting with the energy and the climate. If we can deliver on impact, and if you can showcase that impact, I think that will bring a very nice motivation to all UN agencies, all other stakeholders having data, to share that data, as long as we accept also to share the outcome of the data. To develop a collaborative AI research initiative, I think that I don't need to explain that. It's what is the pathway, what is the common global pathway to build a global AI research agenda across all member states and organizations, and building the capacity, the global capacity and the knowledge sharing. We cannot start building models for the global world with omitting a couple of countries. We need that every country got their sovereignty and their words to be heard when it comes to developing models, but also we need to about their requirements and their needs. That should be included also in the models. And finally, this is about the policy and the regulatory framework for responsible AI use, which is beyond the climate and the energy. It's about no stigma. It's about the fair use of the AI and the notion of the responsible AI. Finally, that was for using AI for the energy and the climate. But at the same time, we need to be very careful when it comes about the strong development of the AI. Many alarms here and there are coming on and around the globe about AI being a very energivore, and then there is this, today there is a big interest into rebuilding nuclear small energy for alimenting and for empowering the AI and data centers. And then for such purpose, we need to, first of all, think about what does it mean AI energy consumption, and where it happens on the value chain of the AI. Is it in data collection? Is it in training? Is it in data center? Is it in usage? And then to understand how to distribute this use in a fair manner, and also to feed in the existing models about energy usage by the AI, or also by countries, so that they understand when maybe training the models. Should we train a model during summer or during winter? giving its energy consumption. Maybe during winter, if it's very large model, it's much more meaningful rather than during summer in the global south at least. Then we need to define these monitoring metrics. We do not have monitoring metrics. We recently we recently agreed on a couple of cryptocurrency and blockchain metrics on the energy consumption, which is quite similar to the AI because it's based on GPU usage. So we need also to define common sets of monitoring metrics, and we need to start thinking about efficient design of AI, either in hardware or in software. There is this large language models that we are building. There is a lot of AI, and models can be optimized quickly in the design, and that's something that we need to put on the technical phase to encourage the usage of low energy consumption hardware too. Finally, we need the transparency standards. Today, if you would like to imagine the amount of energy consumed by the GPT-4 of OpenAI, we are not able to do that, simply because OpenAI are not disclosing the kind of GPU they are using or the geographical location of the usage of their data center. So we cannot measure their impact other than by doing triangulation and estimation of the average before the GPT-4 and after the GPT-4 and making some projection. And finally, we are very open to global collaboration. This is a call to all of you here. Please join us in this efforts. It's not a UN affair, it's a humanity affair. And we'll be very happy and proud if you are joining this efforts.
Thank you so much, Mehdi, for setting the stage. And this is a great setup for us for the amazing panel group that we have here to tackle some of those key questions you had. Like, we have now our reality check to talk about the duality, what's the role of the different sectors, the role of science, the role of international organizations, so allow me to introduce our panelists. I'm going to start. I don't know if we have our panelist online. He's online? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to start with introducing Syed Ashraf, who's joining us online. He's a special scientific advisor to the AIEA. And then I'm going to invite Araceli Frandes Pali, head of the Technology Innovation Unit at IAA. Please. And I would like to invite also Michelle Pattern. Michelle is the General Manager of Sustainability Policy at Microsoft. And would like to invite Jean-Louis Enochad, Chief Innovation Officer of NetHope. And I would like to invite my colleague, Joe Senior Fellow Researcher at IFPRI, one of CGIAR centers. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to start with a question to the group, and starting with we heard about this duality, the dual impact of AI when it comes to energy. So if it's okay, would like to ask you if you can introduce your organization and your role and your initial view on this duality of the role when it comes to AI in the energy climate nexus. And for logistical reasons, I'm going to start with our colleague online to give him the opportunity to start addressing this question, and also a few specific questions to you, Syed Ashraf, on the AIEA, because he might have connectivity issues, so we don't want to risk losing him. So I'm going to allow him to cover this question first, and also cover a couple of areas related to with the rise of now tech companies adopting nuclear solutions like SMRs. How does AIEA plan to support this trend responsibly? And also, what strategies is AIEA exploring to help integrate nuclear energy safely into the tech industry? And how does also AIEA leverage AI to support clean energy advancements in the nuclear sector? So we'll go to you, Mr. Syed Ashraf, and then we'll come back to our panels in the room.
Hi, everybody. My name is Syed Ashraf. You heard about it already. This question is, there are a handful of questions actually. Uh, and we heard a lot from Mehdi about the AI and what UN is doing for sustainable development goals and all. The IAEA is international organization responsible, mandated to promote nuclear energy in the world, and also ensures and provides assurance that the technology is used for peaceful purposes. These are uh, two sides of the IAEA responsibilities. So about the nuclear energy, I would like to first mention a little bit about nuclear energy itself. People know it has gone through a uh, different levels of acceptance, uh, and now it is coming back. Because of many reasons. The most important one is people now realize that the nuclear power is the solution, because it's a clean energy, and if we want to really achieve the net zero target, we need to look at it now. And so you see the evidence that even yesterday around 30 countries have signed a declaration at COP, uh, and uh, and 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 declared that they would like to triple the nuclear power by 2050. So nuclear energy is coming back, and it is not just related to AI, it is in broader energy sector, energy domain. And if you want to know about nuclear power, it's a little bit clean energy source with carbon footprint comparable to that of renewable source of power, much like hydros, wind, solar, tidal, and geothermal. And to emphasize the reliability of nuclear power, point in contention is that despite much smaller installed capacity, today nuclear supplies a quarter of world's low carbon energy. And coming back to now, what the nuclear power can do for AI sector. Uh, we Before we go to what IAEA can do, it is already evident that the AI sector, especially big tech companies, are already looking at nuclear power. They're investing in it. So for IAEA, it is important that they understand the responsibility that comes with the nuclear power. There are international obligations. There are and IAEA. It is better that engage with the IAEA as early as possible, especially uh, when they are investing in nuclear power. We do not know what kind of role they will like to have, in which area they will like to install this nuclear power. What is it going to be, the kind of a captive nuclear station for AI sector, or it is going to be just the the normal the grid where the operators provide the nuclear energy and they take it like any other energy user. So it is important for us to that they get involved with us, and we are in fact planning uh, this next year to have this nuclear AI dialogue, where we want to invite tech companies with nuclear industry and involving other relevant stakeholders to explore opportunities to mutually benefit from the capacity and knowledge of the two important high technology sectors. So this is what we are at this moment. Uh, and as far as, for example, we hear SMRs or microreactors. What IAEA has done, we have taken an initiative with the government, regulators, and industries to harmonize regulatory framework and technologies standardization that could be incentive to both AI and nuclear sectors. And IAEA can support in the matters of technology selection, infrastructure development, safety and security, human resource management, and on adherence to international legal requirements. So
Thank you.
for the time being, I stop here and I'm ready to answer if you have any other questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we hope your connectivity will continue to be stable so you can engage with us in the conversation. So, coming back to our dear panelists here in person. The question was your initial view on this duality of AI when it comes to energy. And a little bit, if you can put it in a context of your organization or company and your role at the moment, that would be a great way to start. And this is for everybody, and I'm going to hand the microphone.
Thank you very much. And yeah, pleasure joining today's discussion. Thanks very much for the invitation. I think it's a crucial topic and certainly one of the most consequential technologies or technology areas of our times. My name is Araceli Fernandez. I work at the International Energy Agency. We look at all different aspects of energy, particularly on energy security, affordability, and as well the sustainable transition. And of course, AI is one of the areas that we are watching quite closely and that we want to understand better, given how dynamically is evolving and how rapidly. Maybe in this kind of first approximation, I would just kind of highlight 3 key pillars, and happy to elaborate a bit more in the discussion on those. The first one, from our perspective, of course, coming from the energy world, is about the impact on energy demand from the increased use of AI, and we are already seeing increased use of data centers, and of course, this could only grow with the expanded use of different AI tools. Today, just to put things in context, electricity demand related to data centers is around 1% of global electricity demand. So again, small in the overall picture, but growing very fast and very quickly. A lot of different kind of projections out there on how this could evolve moving forward, and as well a lot of uncertainty. We are going to be looking into this in more detail over the next months or so, where we are going to be putting together a special analysis and report. I'm happy to talk more about that. But it's important to note, as has been mentioned already in the introductions, how electricity intensive data centers are, which again, in the overall picture, that's something to watch, not concerning right now, because even when we look into the immediate future to 2030, the overall growth of electricity demand that we expect, we could see that data centers could account for around 10% of that. But the global picture could hide some potential local challenges, because those shares could be, of course, greater in specific countries, in specific states, where they could be intensive, let's say, on data centers operations. So again, something to monitor, to understand as well what are the energy efficiency opportunities, and of course monitor very closely the uptake of renewable electricity capacity, but also other low emissions electricity sources, as my colleague mentioned, in terms of nuclear. And here I think also to highlight the impressive role of the big tech companies, which are, I think, one of the main let's say, renewable capacity procurers, and as well as nuclear in a distributed way. So I think it's important to look at both the demand, but also how the supply is evolving. The second pillar I would mention relates a little bit more on the, given this duality, so on the positive side. I think, of course, the first speakers have mentioned very different areas where AI can really support the sustainable transition. And from the perspective of electricity systems, which is a core pillar of the decarbonization from our perspective, there are great opportunities here. We've seen how there's been a lot of momentum when it comes to this tripling pledge at COP last year for renewable capacity additions, but now we are supporting a complementary pledge here at COP 29, where we need to bring forward these capacity additions and turn into actual electricity generation by complementing it with the right flexibility, levels of flexibility in the grid, and the grid expansion and upgrades and improvement. And so I think in that vein, AI tools can really help on key different areas in that development. First of all, on planning and anticipation. Here it connects a little bit with how AI tools can help us understand better how energy demand could evolve moving forward, not only in terms of its own impact, as I've mentioned before, but as well trying to help us certainly very well forecasting demand projections in different applications and uses. The other area is about permitting, and we know that there's quite a lot of renewable projects in the pipeline that cannot come into operations because they are just stand by in the administrative pipeline. And here again, I think AI can bring a lot of efficiency improvements to really streamline these permitting processes that can unlock really great shares of low emissions electricity into the system. And then, of course, finally, when it comes to operations and optimizing the operations of those electricity systems, both providing tools to consumers to make a consumption of electricity that can be more aware of their impacts and having flexibility in mind, and then of course in terms of the operations of the actual grids, etc. And then just the final point that I'd be happy to elaborate a bit more later on is about how AI can really boost innovation. And this, has of course a lot of different dimensions, but from us, from the IEA, the International Energy Agency, how AI can really boost technology developments in the energy field. It's a key area that we are really investigating because again can really help us reach that last let's say mile to really let's say increase the pace of emission reductions as well across the board. So I'll leave it here for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And let me just start by congratulating Mehdi and the UN for the progress on the Digital Global Compact. It's really an important step in global governance for responsible AI. Had a very consultative process to get to this point, and one of the important innovations that it brings is this scientific advisory panel, which in some ways learns from the COP process and the IPCC and how scientific advisory has really helped drive policy making and global compromise on these issues moving forward. So, Michelle Patron, I'm General Manager for Sustainability Policy at Microsoft, and the sustainability team at Microsoft is responsible for setting and executing our sustainability goals. And we do so by working to get our own house in order with our operations, working to develop technology that help our customers meet their sustainability goals, and work with global partners when it comes to policy, skilling, and technology partnerships. And we think about AI in much the same frame, in that how can we use AI to achieve our sustainability outcomes, and how do we manage the footprint of AI. And so for Microsoft, it remains very much anchored in our sustainability commitments. We have committed to be carbon negative by 2030, water positive, replenishing more water than we use, waste, net zero waste, and protect as much ecosystem. A key part of our carbon negative commitment is to be 100% renewable by next year. And we are very much on track for that. With the growth in our business, we remain on track for that. And that's because when we build our data centers, we also build renewable projects that bring additional electricity online to the grid. And just to give you a sense of scale, we have over 125 new projects that have been brought online by Microsoft, either solar or wind, storage, and that contracted over 34 gigawatts of new renewable electricity onto the grid. We know that right now, as the IEA said, data centers, Microsoft is a subset of that, account for about 1% of global share. We know it's growing. May not be growing as much as the headlines will tell you, but it's growing, and that matters to us, and it matters to our local community. And so we need to make sure that we continue to do that in a way where we're doing that with carbon-free electricity, bringing new tools into the toolkit outside of renewables, looking inside the data center on how we improve efficiency, and making sure we continue to manage the footprint of our supply chain. On the flip side, we also see enormous potential in how AI can accelerate clean energy transition and sustainability outcomes. And this happens in three key ways, because AI really provides three superpowers to us, to enable us to do better. One is by understanding and predicting complex systems. The second is by really turbocharging science and allowing us to develop new solutions. And the third is by empowering the workforce. I know we'll have a chance to go probably into a bit more depth, but let me give you one or two examples of that. So the first, as it pertains to the energy transition, the first in understanding and predicting complex systems. One of the challenges that countries around the world face is grid capacity. Some need new grid capacity, some are just building, some need additional grid capacity. A lot of that is due to being able to manage more renewables on the grid, as well as bringing new power sources onto the grid. It's very expensive and it's very timely to build new grid infrastructure. And there's a lot of unused capacity on existing grid infrastructure. We just don't exactly know where and how and why. And so by leveraging AI to understand kind of the current flow rate of electricity transmission infrastructure, we can identify where there are corridors to bring more electricity online. So there's a partner of Microsoft's called Line Vision that is doing just that. And they have done this in the UK. And they were able to identify an additional 600 megawatts of capacity, or equivalent to 600 megawatts. So when they were bringing a new offshore wind project online, they didn't have to build new grid capacity. They were able to shorten the time that they were able to bring this new carbon-free electricity online. So that's just one way that it is helping. The second is in developing new solutions. Earlier this year, Microsoft partnered with the Pacific Northwest National Lab. That's one of the national labs under the U.S. Department of Energy. And it was the project was to identify new battery compounds, battery materials that would use less lithium so that we could reduce the amount of raw materials that are needed to go into these components, and also extend the life and the power that these type of battery storage can provide. And the task was to look at 32 million compounds. Previously, what would happen is you'd be in a laboratory, you would test one compound, write down the report, test another one after you changed it a little bit, and keep going. Within 3 days, using AI and high-performance computer, the lab was able to go from 32 million to just a dozen. And then ended up finding one or two compounds that could provide 70% less, that required 70% less lithium for the battery. So that's just two examples. Those are things that happened this year alone in leveraging artificial intelligence. The framing that we have today is exactly the framing that we need to use to really make sure that we are leveraging this for sustainability outcomes, but the promise is enormous.
Wow. We stand here. We stand here at an interesting moment, right? It's a paradox. On one side, we have this AI that is, like any technology at the beginning, kind of creating some social and environmental ills. Every technology does that, right? And then on the other side, it brings that hope that it will solve the complex problems that us humans have not been able to solve alone. And we hear all those problems, that reduction of complexity, the simplification of large problems into the dozen. But what I want to remind you is that at the end of all those numbers, those gigawatts, those temperature numbers and others, there are human beings. There are human beings who are suffering today because of climate shocks. Sadly, they are mostly women and children and marginalized communities around the world. I'm Jean-Louis Cochard, I go by JL. I lead innovation within NetHope, which is a consortium of 65 large nonprofits. CGIAR is a member of NetHope. Who works with about 50 tech partners, Microsoft is one of our tech partners, to solve humanitarian and environmental issues around the world. We work in 190 countries, and collectively our members serve 1.6 billion people on the planet. So recently we decided to surface up the voices of those people. How are they living with that climate? But as we go towards 1 billion voices listening to those people, we cannot do that alone. We need to do that with AI. And so AI brings us not only the ability to reduce the complexity of the problem that we have, but also to better listen to individuals. And likewise, we can bring those voices better through AI to local policymakers and government officials that no longer need to use a spreadsheet, a database, or data, but actually can query that data with the tool that has been given to humanity since its beginning, storytelling, talking with it and interchanging. And that is why I'm bringing you hope that my colleagues also extend. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just it's difficult to follow all these amazing stories the organization's work. So yeah, my name is Zhao Ku. I'm part of CGIAR, working at the center called IPRI, focusing on policy issues. And I've been part of many AI pilot and AI-powered research activities in CGIAR. So I wanted to mention a couple of them, focusing on the benefit and how we are leveraging AI to accelerate our science and innovation processes. So three examples quickly, one on the language, one on the vision, and last one, the audio. So the language models have been really instrumental to make our scientific findings and research outputs more accessible to our stakeholders. The farmers and extension services in Global South don't necessarily want to read, or they are really they're open to read and digest all these complex and very complicated scientific articles. But we have this beautiful tool called large language models that makes the process easier. So we've been experimenting many different LLM-powered tools with the extension services and also NGOs working on digital extension to digest all these scientific findings and research articles into easier language for people to understand and act on it. For audio data, we've been working with local, so digital extension and extension kind of services and organizations to connect with local farmers. It's very similar to what JL just said. We experimented in early days using available audio models, audio analytics tools, but we quickly found when you take those models to local languages in remote areas, that does accuracy just degrade so quickly because all the data fed into such audio models are not exactly the kind of audio data you will collect and people speak in those rural communities. So we had to come up with different approaches to collect new data and train fine-tuned audio models in local context. So that such models can be utilized in like local radio stations and local radio audio-based extension agencies and things like that. So the audio analytics, the AI-powered audio analytics tool has been really instrumental to connect with our rural communities. The last one in the vision, so we have been also using lots of computer vision models to detect, like for example, plant disease and pest problems and provide recommendations for farmers. When you go to the field and the plant disease and plant pest problems are the #1 challenges that farmers are asking for help. But it's really difficult for even just human naked eyes, even for the experts to identify exactly what kind of problems that you are looking at. So with lots of data we collected and analyzed with our partners across Global South, we were able to develop really accurate computer vision models that can provide early diagnosis of different types of problems and provide recommendations how to mitigate them. So there are lots of challenges and exactly the duality, the issue that Claude mentioned. I think especially for these early days, there are still a lot of benefits that we are exploring and discovering so that organizations like ours, I think we have a role to play in understanding exactly what kind of benefits that we can bring to the table so that we have all balanced the discussion and debate around the energy use in AI.
Thank you so much. Very, very insightful. And you went ahead and answered actually a number of my questions, so that's great. Arhel, I'm going to come back to you with this question, which is, what are some of the key opportunities and challenges in integrating AI into existing energy systems to enhance efficiency and reduce carbon emissions? Going back to the reality that we have still.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this question touches a little bit on some of the areas we've been highlighting. Maybe just I'd like to emphasize first in terms of the operations of the current energy systems and particularly electricity systems, and then on the innovation front. Because indeed, I think what we are facing in terms of bottlenecks to bring some of these projects forward are either on the operational side, because again there's still challenges even in the most advanced economies technologically and with the greatest resources in terms of how to integrate some of these variable energy sources into the electricity system, both to make sure that we can match as best as possible supply and demand. And so I think this comes from on both sides. On the supply side, certainly when it comes to the optimized operations, I mean different AI models really can help, as Michelle mentioned, of course, on how identify what could be some of the gaps and opportunities to best utilize existing grids, on how to best manage and control generation plants and systems, but also on the demand side, which is something that has been always a bit more difficult on how to engage consumers in contributing to this flexibility in the grid. So now we really have options and tools that are really very user-friendly, as my colleagues mentioned, that are very close to to the final consumer in terms of facilitating what could be the best approach in terms of the consuming patterns for energy on our daily lives. So I think this really brings another dimension on how we can already make a better use of existing systems, and certainly not only that, but develop new systems and upgrade them in a way that could operate even further, and of course as well accelerate that process. Again, not even helping on the technology front, as I've mentioned, but also in administrative matters such as permitting. I think this can be really a great help to boost that. And the other area I wanted to emphasize a bit more is on the aspect of how AI can boost innovation. Michelle gave a great example, and this is a bit the area, this early stage of the innovation cycle, this kind of discovery step, where we really see huge potential when it comes to finding new promising materials, finding new battery chemistries, finding new catalysts, finding new metal frameworks. This is something that can help a wide range of applications and provide a wide range of benefits across the energy system. It can really help improve greatly energy efficiency in different applications, from industrial processes to different conversion processes as well across the board. And of course, when we talk about materials, this is an area where we can help greatly in terms of advancing on novel energy storage technologies, from electricity storage to thermal storage to chemical storage. And again, this will have an impact on the flexibility of electricity systems. We've seen great examples of that, how AI tools can really boost the speed at which this discovery of new materials can take place. I mean, again, Michelle's example is a very good one. We've seen as well, articles and experiments in which, up to 40% increase in the pace at which novel materials were discovered just by, again, training models on how to test very different combinations of materials and their adequacy to a specific set of characteristics and requirements. But of course, not all phases of the innovation cycle, from the very early discovery to the commercialization of that technology, are so, let's say, prone or long-hanging fruits for applying an AI model. Of course, AI is, very well suited for very well-structured data sets, and also can help unlock and explain complex systems, as we've been discussing. But there are some of these later stages when it comes to, from a large prototype to commercialization, where we've seen by experience that, different types of skills are needed. One has to kind of evolve through that process to learn as well. And so that's something where, again, there could be, it could be interesting to as well focus on, how AI tools can really help us on that front, where we've seen less examples so far. But again, there could be a great potential, because those areas could be a bit, again, less kind of long-hanging fruits, if we could put it that way, but that could hold as well very interesting potential for AI tools. So interesting to watch that part as well.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to switch between the two sides. So I'm going to go to JC for a next question, which is how AI, like you draw from a larger group of partners in the network. How is AI now being used within NetHope network to address energy and climate challenges, particularly in underserved regions, which is the regions where most of the members work? And how also NetHope is managing how this topic is evolving and what role NetHope is playing with its members to navigate that topic.
Well, thanks. First, the communities that we work with don't consume nuclear energy. Their energy is charcoal, right? And we have to be very realistic about this, right? But also, what's interesting is that charcoal has the same degree of complexity than nuclear, because the overconsumption of charcoal leads to deforestation. It then leads to soil erosions, which then hurt crops and extra, right? So we have actually complex problems on charcoal energy as much as we have complex problems on the grid and on nuclear energy. And to do that, since 2017, NetHope has worked with its members on two things. First, because we're humanitarian organizations, we worked on responsible and ethical AI, creating frameworks for that to be able to be done in a way that respects our moralities and our principles as humanitarian organization. Second is understanding that in the same way that thermic energy, which is bringing us here at COP, has caused the shrinkage of distances, how we travel here, AI is shrinking time. But in shrinking time, it's doing something quite interesting. It's leaving a lot of people behind in skills. So what we're doing, and in partnership with Microsoft and others, is we are augmenting the AI skills of population so that nobody is left behind, so that's an inclusive and comprehensive world. We do that through working groups where our members share with each other the techniques, technologies, new discoveries that they've had on AIs. We work with our partners so that they present their new models and their new approaches and others. And then finally, I think that AI is one of those things which cannot be done alone by a single organization, no matter how big, how powerful. And so what we do is we encourage collaboration for catalytic action so that we can create a change collectively between UN organizations, businesses, members of NetHope and NetHope itself, so that within our lifetime we can start to bring the solutions to market that safeguard the future of humanity.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to Michelle with another question. You mentioned a couple of examples, but we'd like you to share one more example from Microsoft and how it's using AI to enhance energy efficiency and promote renewable energy. But also, Microsoft has been making great investments in the infrastructure for AI. And how are you balancing the expansion of AI capability with sustainability goals as you continue with those investments? So it's a two-sided question.
Yes, on some of the energy examples that we talked about when it comes to AI, we talked about making the grid more efficient. There are a number of different use cases that we're seeing in helping in real time balancing the grid. So when you bring more renewable energy online instantaneously, you need to make sure that there's a certain frequency to the grid and that you're able to match demand when it's variable and supply when it's variable as well. And so there are a number of use cases for renewable energy and energy efficiency. I'd like to actually, before we get to the piece about our own footprint, build on what JL said about people, because this is really about people. I have a colleague who always says to me, Michelle, we need to make AI boring. We need to make AI boring because so that it feels accessible, so that everyone feels it's very easy for them to use and understands where they can use it in their everyday. We also need to make it accessible and not repeat or prolong kind of the gap that we already experience in many areas, particularly when we talk about electricity, and make sure that it's taken 150 years then we still have this huge gap on who has electricity and who doesn't have electricity. We need to make sure that AI is accessible for all right from the start. And that's actually one of the reasons that Microsoft has been prioritizing our partnerships with humanitarian organizations and with the UN. And one of the things that we're here to move forward is the work that we're doing to leverage AI for early warning systems and using AI to develop much more up-to-date population models so that countries know where their populations are. A lot of them rely on 15-year-old census data, and that has changed so much so that if there is a tsunami or there is a wildfire that's coming, they're not even sure of what populations are being impacted. The second is using AI to understand where the gaps in connectivity are. So, and it doesn't need to be super expensive infrastructure, but just that we can have radio waves or broadband that has access to different pockets in different countries around the world so they can get early warning alerts. And the last is in models that help with better understanding of extreme flooding and extreme heat, and overlay that on where vulnerable population is, and then use natural language models to be able to get that information out or have people ask questions to it. So those are just different ways that we're seeing AI applied in the humanitarian context. When it comes to how we continue to ensure that our footprint remains minimized and achieve our sustainability goals as we're building out AI, first and foremost, it's about continuing to purchase and bring online carbon-free electricity. We've done a lot in the renewable energy space, and now we're trying to move to other areas that make sense in the countries where we operate. In some places that will be nuclear or advanced nuclear. In some countries that'll be geothermal. We're expanding our footprint and we're partnering with G42 and developing data center in Kenya, and that's going to be a geothermal powered facility. As we do that, we're also looking for opportunities to make sure we address that gap we talked about in the energy access. And so we've been doing a lot of community engagement in the United States so that we build onto some of our energy projects, locating them in underserved communities, providing a portion of the proceeds to local communities so that they can use them for skilling for their own environmental work. And so we're bringing some of those lessons to other countries. We've just built that into a portfolio of projects we have in India. And so that we can also make sure that not only are we driving carbon-free development, but we're also driving more access to energy, at least in the places that we're expanding. The second is investing inside the data center. I would encourage all of you to look at headlines from about 15 years ago when the cloud computing expansion was beginning. And I think you will see some of the same headlines, and it's very relevant, and it's very important for this information to have been shared, was that there was concern that there would be a hockey stick of growth on electricity because they saw where all of the early models were taking us, and if we kept consuming at the same pace, we'd see tremendous electricity demand growth. What happened was that created an urgency to invest in server efficiency, in cooling efficiency, and what we saw was only over a 10-year period, a 10% increase in the amount of electricity that all data centers required, and an 850% increase in the actual compute. So I think you'll begin to see some of the same efficiencies take place as we learn more about AI, and we're able to bring more efficiencies to both the model and to the hardware, new ways of cooling if it's direct to the chip, so that we're able to minimize efficiency. It's not just an environmental imperative, it's an economic imperative for a lot of these companies. And it's our customers who end up paying for the services, and so they're going to have an economic imperative as well. And the last place is really looking into our supply chain and making sure that as we build out our infrastructure, we're constructing new facilities, we have an opportunity to really drive the market for green steel, green cement, and to really accelerate the development of those sectors. And so we're minimizing our footprint in our construction, but creating the opportunity for others to do so as well.
Thank you, Michelle. So, Joe, I'm going to go back to you with a question. You started scratching the surface of some of the use cases, but can you elaborate a little bit about use cases and how some uses of AI has been transforming agriculture practices, especially in terms of energy efficiency and climate, and also what you see as still the opportunity for doing more and also the challenges, again, in reducing the emission of the agri-food system sector?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, so there are lots of different aspects we can enter into this conversation. Just as a background, I've been also personally quite curious about this relationship between digitalization, not just AI, but use of digital technologies and more information-intensive kind of management practice in agriculture and greenhouse gas emission. And there's not a lot of evidence making that connection, but just recent years, last couple of years, there has been just suddenly a lot of studies are coming to the academia, and there are now evidences or looking at kind of inverted U-shape of greenhouse gas emission and the progress of digitalization, meaning in the early days, there might be some cases that, like either through data centers or either through different types of infrastructure, there will be some periods that digitalization actually contribute to greenhouse gas emission, or that there are ways to the pathway to optimize it. But once you reach the point, then we can see the greenhouse gas emission actually goes down, especially through the better use of fertilizers and other types of resource allocations optimized in the system. So that's actually a really encouraging sign. This debate, again, is very timely. So we have to make sure that we can reach the point, peak point as soon as possible so that we can stabilize this, the greenhouse gas emission and digitalization and all these information systems. So the examples from CGIAR and also in agriculture sector is a lot around the use of data and especially use of AI-ready data. Not all the data we have been developing and generating are really AI-ready or even open access to some extent. So there has been effort to make sure what we are publishing and what we are generating are all open access, also fair, findable, interoperable, reusable in this agriculture field, and that has been really started blooming. Especially, we are really happy actually see our research outputs are being utilized by large language models and training of AI models. Like for example, I mentioned this pest and disease diagnostic model, and just one app developed in India is now reaching more than the tens of millions of farmers. There is also a very encouraging sign that the agtech company adopted the technology is now making profit, which is not common in agri-tech field. So they have really robust business model that when they make recommendations to farmers, they also provide ways to how to mitigate the risk, to go to this market and find this dealer and get this kind of either chemical or different equipment to manage the risk. So they provide kind of end-to-end solution then that can develop more sustainable business model. So we are not only working in the field and collecting data, but we are also interested in the entire kind of agricultural value chain of how public sector and private sector can kind of mutually benefit from this kind of technology, and that's been really the interesting and exciting journey. And we want to develop this kind of more sustainable and innovative business model more and more across the global south.
Thank you so much. So at the risk, I don't want to lose the opportunity. There's two important questions, so I'm going to combine them and give you an opportunity. It's the same question for each of you, which is, where do you see, like we heard what it's going to take, which is going to take everybody on this stage, but also many others as well. So from your perspective, the role of the organization you work with or the company, where you see your role in advancing this collaborative effort that we need to address this nexus of AI, energy, and climate. And the other part of the question is, what will be one call for action you think moving forward after COP29? What will be, from your perspective or your company or your organization, one call for action you think is critical for us to really be on the path to achieving that balance and also leveraging the opportunities? So I'll start with you, Argel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so maybe just start a little bit by the call of action, which connects a little bit with, you know, the in a way the mandate and the role of the International Energy Agency. Of course, we are at the end of the day an analytical organization. We basically provide analytical insights and foundation for different types of dialogues and facilitating you know, the complex decisions that governments need to take. But at the same time facilitating the dialogue between industries and governments and this international cooperation. So in that vein, of course, AI doesn't escape from that, and what we are looking actually is posing that question, you know, what is the nexus between the AI and the energy transition, the clean energy transition? What could be, you know, the different elements, some of the pillars that I've mentioned at the very beginning, you know, what could be some of the different implications, but also opportunities. And for this, I mean, we've been working over the past months. I mean, we're going to be developing a special report early next year. And for this, we are consulting with, you know, a wide network of experts. We are convening a major global conference in early December in Paris with very different stakeholders, tech companies, of course, governments, international organizations, as well as governments from different regional contexts, financing institutions. And here just to thank as well the Office of the Special Envoy of Technology, Mr. Amandeep Singh Gill, which is going to be joining us for that event. But basically here, again, at the end of the day, what we're trying is to understand and put numbers on how AI can help, how could be a bit of a challenge in some areas to really help these difficult discussions and make sure that, again, we are the core of international cooperation and help the dialogue across sectors and across regional contexts.
So for Microsoft, right now we are very focused on working with our partners around the world to develop and deploy AI, and we are very also focused on making sure that we can manage the footprint of that. I would say that it comes back to Microsoft's mission, which is to empower every organization and person on the planet to achieve more. And so this comes back to helping all of you achieve what you and your organizations want to do. So I would say to be creative about how AI can help. Think about the skills that you need. Identify where you think things are going wrong or not in the right direction. And on all of those, let us know. Because we need to be transparent, we need to be accountable, we need to be responsible. And that's the only way that the speed of which AI is working, that we can ensure that is aligned with sustainable outcomes.
So as NetHope, we will continue to work on collaboration and extend that collaboration beyond the large institutions such as UN and the CGIARs and the Microsoft and others, but bring that to the local level where people live with community-based organization, groupment of women are working together in small villages to make ends meet because they are the ones who are suffering the most. So that's the first thing. And the call of actions comes from that. Help them collaborate, help them gain AI skills. Most of what we do with our partners, we give it for free to the world. We have training on AI, we have toolkits on how to use AI responsibly, toolkits on whether it's actually a problem that's worthy of AI, you could do it differently than AI so that you don't use the energy. So tell your organizations, go back as volunteers and say, here, I am here, I heard that talk. There is a site called nethope.org. Please go there and I will help you make sense of it, make sense of all this talk, make sense of the Microsoft tools, make sense of the CGIAR research and others. So that's my call for action.
Okay, so yeah, I already mentioned a few things about data and more kind of localized innovation and things. So if I add one more thing, um, so yeah, a couple of years ago, when I interviewed one of the ag tech companies of how they operate and what kind of research the business priorities they have, responsible use of technologies or even digital divide, none of them was actually their priorities. They were looking for ways to be sustainable in the business. So I think again, we we have been talking about responsible AI and ethical use of AI a lot, but when we actually talk to the people developing innovations and they're trying to make business out of it, it's really difficult for them to understand what that really means and what they should do to check the box on we are using responsible AI. So I think beyond the hype, beyond what we've been saying as a little bit kind of abstract kind of high-level goal, I think the role of research organization like CGIAR is to really get down to the business and talk to the people and the developers of innovation, for example, using AI. Just go from design of the application, design solution, all the way to implementation and used by people and how they are really making benefit from this technology to see where in the chain that we make sure that innovation and AI tools can be really used responsibly and ethically. We've been just seeing over and over we are actually creating gaps ourselves. Whenever we talk about responsible AI and we see the eyes of our partners developing this tool, like, what do you want me to do? And I think we have to be more specific and more practical when we get to the point of implementing these principles on the ground. And I think that there is a lot of room for research, role for research organizations to play to bridge the gap.
Thank you. And also, I think the role of science and research is to make sure we prioritize and we have the right understanding of the problems we're trying to solve, so the innovators and the tech, they can really help us arrive at them faster. So, Syed Ashraf, we're going to go to you with the same question, which is, where do you see the role of AIEA in the driving that nexus around AI, energy, and climate? And one call of action you would like to share with the group as your first immediate call for action from your perspective. I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm coming back. Okay, thank you. Very interesting talk. I must tell you that IAEA, when I talked about energy, IAEA is not just an energy organization. We work in nuclear power, and promote all kinds of atomic energy. So our area is much, much broad. We are already engaged in many areas, for example, water management, cancer, and different areas. And this AI is definitely being not only being used, it is something which is inevitable, that it will provide us new insight in many different work that IAEA does, and it is we are working with many tech companies on that. So that's one side of it. Coming back to energy, the AI as a tool is being used everywhere. For example, we are talking about these days developments in fusion energy. Without integrating AI into it, its research or development, deployment is not possible. So the AI's role is going to be absolutely crucial in many different areas. So, having said that, we also recognize that it is energy intensive. So will be probably most of the new developments when it comes. It will need energy, but it will be counterbalanced by its benefits, which is quite evident. But then, when we say it energy intensive and we need clean energy, where we pitch in for the nuclear power, and that's what we continue to do it, and we want to establish this dialogue, and for that purpose we are already in planning stage, and you will hear more from us, and this initiative, and there will be many coming, will be to see that nuclear power is properly reflected in the selection of energy that is done, not only in AI, but in other sectors as well. So yeah, so for immediate thing, I can say that we are working very closely uh, with many industry, nuclear industry, of course, and the regulators to see that we have clarity on the regulatory framework and standards, so that when it comes to deployment, it could be done more efficiently. So these are the things we are working, and the takeaway I would say would be that our efforts to bring people together and convene a kind of different stakeholders on one platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think we're doing okay on time, that we might be able to take one question from audience. If anybody has a burning question for any of the panelists.
I am Adil El-Biltagi. I was a former chair of the Global Forum for Agricultural Research. I worked with the CGIAR for years. I'm former Minister of Agriculture. Why I'm saying this? Because it's a matter of, there is no isolated island. When you talk about AI, it's not standalone as the colleague from you have mentioned this. But what is really matter is what you said. It's the local community. It's where really adaptation should take place. Because if Secretary Guterres was saying early warning system has to be for all and now, people are not in the West, in advanced OECD countries, they have the tools to sustain their simulation models every day are changing. They are using the best of science in computer, in informatics, neural networks and big data and AI, all this to give appropriate early warning system. But the people in developing country, in the global south, they don't have this. And now, because of adaptation and because of all this series of IPCC, all our meetings in COP, starting from whatever it starts until Cancun and Copenhagen with no hope. We arrived now here in the COP29, and what we got? We don't have the bridging of science and the need to transform agriculture drastically. Agriculture cannot be transformed drastically without AI, without information system. It is not an alternative. Therefore, precision agriculture will help in adaptation to optimize the use of nutrient and the use of water, and therefore we need it. It's not a luxury. Is it for the small farmer? Yes. Is it for a small community? Yes, because it will help them. They should not need to understand tremendously, like using the telephone, iPhones and so on. You can use it, but you don't have to know the sophistication of it. But people, national scientists should know. And this is a role of organizations like CGIAR comes along to train the scientists to help in sketching out the models and simulation models which should be applied. And Microsoft could work with these local scientists to enhance this. Everywhere in the world, we need to put our money there if we really are serious in transforming agriculture to cope with climate change impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I don't think we can end at a better note, so we appreciate it so much. I'm going to ask Mehdi to give us a closing remark.
Thank you so much for this very interesting and patient you have put in the panel and all of this discussion. I see that, again, there is a big momentum when it comes to the AI, the energy, the climate, and all the other SDGs. And as you mentioned it, the SG is strongly advocating for not only, even if we adopted the Global Digital Compact, to make it a more local approach, going from local to a global impact. And that can only be done with communities and all stakeholders that are involved, private companies, CSOs, NGOs, UN agencies, member states, all coming together. And that's a very good moment. And I think that we need to grasp this moment. We need to build on that momentum. And we have this GDC that got recently adopted. We got the very nice report delivered by the SG High-Level Advisory Body on AI. And we have all the incentives today. If we would like to work towards a better development of the AI for all and for the humanity, I think it's the right moment. And it's only require a good willing, but also many good actions to be deployed. Khulud.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to our great panelists. It has been a pleasure hearing you, and we look forward to continue this, hopefully with more action. So Dr. Ali, in the future, we'll really see how we are transforming not just the ag sector. Of course, for us, we are in the ag pavilion, so we're going to focus on this. But I know this is transformative for a lot of the work that many organizations, whether NetHope members or others around the globe, are trying to move the needle. Thank you so much, and thanks, Sayed Ashraf, for joining us online. Thank you.